Hey, and welcome to Capital City Sports, your home for the Carolina Gamecocks. I'm Ed Cahill.
And I'm Taniqua Penix. Coming up on this week's show, the football team hosted the Tennessee Vols at home on Saturday night. Despite a first-half blowout, the Gamecocks again turned to their defense to lock up the game. We have the highlights from that game in just a moment.
We also have a double dose of soccer highlights for you this week, as the men's and women's soccer teams were at home last week. We'll have all the action from Stone Stadium coming up. But first, the Gamecocks hosted division rival Tennessee at home on Saturday night.
That's right, Ed. The Vols have struggled the entire season, and things didn't get better for head coach Phil Fulmer. We'll send it over to the Bryce for more highlights.
The Gamecocks and Steve Spurrier at home trying to get a win against his old nemesis Phil Fulmer and the rapidly declining Tennessee Vols. The student section was in it from the beginning, going crazy with the cocky cloth, and they had good reason because Tennessee went nowhere fast. QB Nick Stevens will get his first taste of the Gamecocks D as Eric Norwood slams him 11 yards in the wrong direction. Carolina would then go on to drive about as efficient as you could hope for. First play, and Steven Garcia rolls out and finds Kenny McKinley for the easy 19. Next play, and again it's Garcia to McKinley, who breaks free and gets loose 18 more yards. Then it's the running back Eric Baker who takes the short pass and turns it upfield. Big gain of 31 before he nearly takes out who I'm sure was a very brave cameraman. And then the grand finale on this newfound offensive explosion, Mike Davis goes somersaulting in for 6, and the Gamecocks strike first, strike quick. Volunteers with the ball, and in case you haven't heard, Jasper Brinkley is a beast of a man. The poor lineman had no chance, and neither did Stevens, who takes sack number 2 on the night. Things would slow down for Carolina as well, though, as Garcia nearly picked by the All-American Eric Berry. More from him later on. One area that was solid all night, special teams. They punted 8 times, but look at the coverage. Chris Hale, absolutely no chance for a return. And a drive that starts bad gets worse. Stoney Woodson will have all of that, thank you very much. 68 yards, first career pick 6 for the safety, and Carolina's got a 14-point lead. That would bring in Jonathan Crompton at quarterback, and he'd immediately regret suiting up as Chris Culver introduces him to turf for another sack. And the Gamecocks D just having fun now, because the very next drive, Lennon Creer takes the pass and at some point fumbles. Captain Munnerlyn scoops it and starts running, and even though nobody knows what's going on, he makes it all the way to the 4, which sets up Garcia for a one-play strike. Always reliable Kenny McKinley. 6 more, and the fans can sense a blowout. Tennessee, they sense a long night, and the sacks keep coming. This time, Marvin Satt putting the hit out just before halftime. Second half now, and the Gamecocks looking to keep the offense alive as Garcia to the big tight end Wes Saunders for 27, but they'd stall and call on Suckup to put it through from 31, and it's a 24-0 rout. Vols finally got a little something going next drive. The pass to Adrian Foster is incomplete, but you can see the flag there. Pass interference on Jasper Brinkley, puts it at the goal line, and Foster goes airborne. First rushing TD of the season for the former Heisman hopeful. But on the ensuing kickoff, Chris Culver doesn't just push around QBs, he's also a dangerous return man. And here he goes, 67, a career high before being forced out, possibly setting up an easy score, but not so fast. Garcia picked. Eric Berry, I told you we'd see him again, and he's not done. He'll go 45 yards across midfield before going down. But the big story on this play is going to be all the injuries. You can see one getting laid out there. They'd be lying around on the field like a battleground. Garcia tweaked his knee, he'd be okay. Lemuel Jean-Pierre out for the season, torn ACL. But now, stop me if you've heard this before. Carolina with a sack. Cliff Matthews this time getting it done, and Tennessee's running out of time. This wouldn't help them either. I said special teams were good. Well, here's more evidence. Dennis Rogan tries on the return, gets stripped, and the long snapper, Charles Turner, comes up with it. Congrats on making a highlight, kid. Chris Smelly in for Garcia now, and he finds Saunders for the quick TD, but a penalty calls it back, and they would settle for the field goal. However, it's just salt in the wound at this point, as Tennessee could do nothing more, and the Gamecocks are going to take this one 27-6. Steve Spurrier and Phil Fulmer exchange what will be their last ever post-game handshake, and the players, they celebrate with the student section for the rare victory over Tennessee. For Capital City Sports, I'm Brian Walker.
Now for more on the game this Saturday night, let's send it over to the birthday boy, Corey Burkhardt, in the boardroom.
All right, thank you, Tanika. That is right. My birthday is today. Thank you very much for that. I'm Corey Burkhardt, being joined by this guy. He's Alex Riley, former sports editor for the Daily Gamecock. He now covers the Gamecocks for the Seneca Daily Messenger. Alex, how are you today?
I'm good. It's your day, though. I mean, happy birthday, my
Yes,
friend.
thank you very much. 23. I feel like I'm getting older, hopefully getting wiser.
That's still left for the jury to decide.
All right, well, one thing the jury needs to decide on, Alex, after the Gamecocks win over Tennessee, what is in store for the rest of this season?
Well, obviously, this sets up Carolina beautifully. It's 6-3, 3-3 in the SEC. This gives them the chance to have one of those good seasons that Steve Spurrier has always been talking about. If the Gamecocks can go on, they're going to be favored in 2 of these last 3 games. Obviously, they won't be favored in the Florida game by any stretch of the imagination. They can go on to win the 2 games they're going to be favored in and give Florida at least a good showing. One of those 29-9 Miami-like games that Florida had earlier this year. Carolina's going to be set up for a New Year's Day bowl game or somewhere around a New Year's Day bowl game for the first time since probably 2002.
All right, well, let's go back to the game on Saturday and your thoughts about how the Gamecocks played in the victory over Tennessee.
Obviously, started off really strong. Really good defensive effort overall for the entire game. Offense had that one great drive of, I think it was 82 yards that they went through in about 4 or 5 plays. So really a balanced game at times. But then Steve Spurrier obviously called the dogs off there after a while. Carolina had a 3-score lead and really scaled the offense back, especially when Stephen Garcia ended up getting hurt. Basically ran the ball the whole time. Chris Smiley only attempted 1 pass. So really a good victory for Carolina, a win over a program they don't normally get a win over, so it was a good thing. But overall, not the greatest win in the world, but one they definitely needed and one that set them up, like you said, for a good postseason.
Well, quick question. You said that you think Coach Spurrier called the dogs off in that second half. USC was up 21-0 at the half. Steve Fink, USC's media relations director, reminded me at last year's game, Tennessee was up 21-0, and we came back, sent the game to overtime. So certainly that had to be in the mind of Coach Spurrier. So do you think it was a combination of him mailing it in the second half, or did it also have something to do with the fact that the offense just did not look very good?
Well, I think the offense, obviously, I don't know if it didn't look very good. Obviously, Stephen Garcia was playing pretty well. He was completing a lot of good passes, even though he wasn't getting the wide receivers, giving the tight ends, different stuff like that. But the running game, Spurrier just kept going with the running game over and over and over again, and it really never broke anything. I mean, when you got Mike Davis, who's carrying the ball 20-plus times for less than 55 yards, I mean, that's a pretty shoddy performance when it comes to running. So I think it was a combination of both things, but I really think that there was a chance in the second half with a lead that was secure for them to go on and try and improve some offensive stuff, and they just kind of took their time and got it over with.
All right, well, I told you if the Gamecocks were able to get the win on Saturday, I was going to wear a Carolina sweatshirt, so that's what I'm doing now. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back later in the show, we're going to talk more about the Tennessee game and look ahead to this weekend's game against Arkansas.
Coming up after the break, we'll hear from the Gamecocks following their win against Tennessee. And we'll also check in with the men's and women's soccer team. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
Despite leading the Volunteers 21-0 at the half, the Gamecock offense failed to score another touchdown in the second half. For all of the post-game reactions, let's send it over to Jared Munch at Williams-Brice Stadium.
Last Saturday night, the Gamecocks picked up a crucial win over SEC East rival Tennessee, improving their record to 6-3 on the season. After the game, Steve Spurrier attributed the win to defense and timely turnovers.
A defensive game where the turnovers made the difference, and we got all the good ones, and that's why we won 27-6.
Spurrier gave Stephen Garcia the start Saturday night, but after the game said that Garcia just isn't ready to be the guy yet, though he does like Stephen's ability to improvise mid-play.
Stephen's really not ready to play. He's just not ready. It's just a struggle for him knowing where everybody is, and but he can make some plays now. He can run out there and freelance around and make some plays.
Garcia suffered a knee injury late in the third quarter that gave Carolina fans a Halloween-like scare, but after the game he reassured everyone that it was not too serious.
That's all right. They think I just hyperextended it, which, I mean, I think it is. They said, Dr. Guy said the ligaments all feel pretty good, so I'm going to get an MRI tomorrow, and yeah, I'll be all right.
The Gamecocks ran the ball 44 times against Tennessee, which is just one shy of the record during the Steve Spurrier era here at Carolina. After the game, Spurrier addressed his conservative play calling.
We didn't throw too much. We got a lead, and we felt like whatever we needed to do was not make any serious mistakes to win the game.
Perhaps the most noteworthy number is 6. After the win against Tennessee, the Gamecocks are now 6-3, making them bowl eligible. And as Captain Munnerlyn said after the game, the Gamecocks aren't slowing down now. They want the best bowl game they can get.
Now we know we bowl eligible, and we want to get to a great bowl. We just don't want to be, ain't no wrong going to the Liberty Bowl, but we want something better.
The 27-6 win is South Carolina's first over Tennessee in Columbia since 1992. Now the Gamecocks look ahead to Arkansas when the Razorbacks come to town this Saturday. For Capital City Sports, I'm Jared Munch.
For more on Carolina's win over Tennessee, let's send it over to Corey Burkhardt in the boardroom.
I'm back here at the Carolina Coliseum with Alex Wright. Alex, let's go back to Saturday night's victory over Tennessee. Is this victory tarnished because the Vols aren't the strong team that they've been for all these years?
No, I really don't think it is. I mean, obviously it's not as impressive if you look at it statistically, but when you think about it, Tennessee is still Tennessee, and we saw that Tennessee is still Tennessee the next day when the polls came out and South Carolina went from no mention to being like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 spots away from being in the top 25. You beat a team that has won a national championship in the last 10 years, which obviously Tennessee has. You beat a team that normally gets quality recruits, quality recruiting classes, has a quality coaching staff, and you're going to get recognition. I think that's whether or not Tennessee is a good team or not, it doesn't matter. It still goes down as a win in the record books, and it still goes down as a victory over a team that is generally a top-tier squad in the SEC East.
All right, let's go to the first half. The offense dominated, put up the 21 points, but in the second half, I think they sputtered, and I think the Gamecocks turned to their defense to just stonewall that Tennessee team to keep that victory. Talk about the performance from those guys.
Well, obviously the defense did everything that Carolina asked them to do. Coach Ellis Johnson really put a tremendous package together against Tennessee. Not that Tennessee's offense was all that great, but to keep a guy like Arian Foster in check. And then, don't get me wrong, their quarterbacks are talented, just not experienced yet. So to keep them in check was also impressive. But I really think that this was kind of a flashback to last year. This is what Tennessee wanted to do against Carolina last year, just kind of hold the Gamecocks in check and hold on for that win. And Carolina, in fact, did it this year against Tennessee, just held them in check and held on for the win. So I really think this was probably one of the greatest defensive performances we've seen probably since the late 80s.
Well, you mentioned defensive coordinator Ellis Johnson. Earlier in the week, Ron Morris, a columnist for the state newspaper, wrote a column saying that the timing and the decision of USC to give him the contract extension that they gave him was just ridiculous. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you won't hear me argue that Ron wasn't right in that point. With the economy the way it is and all these issues surrounding, obviously, the elections and different things like that, I can really see where he makes that argument at. However, it wasn't a raise, it was an extra year. So you're committing to pay somebody more money if they're around for that year. You're not giving them a bigger buyout. You're not giving them an extra $10,000 a year or making some promise that if their defense does something that you give them extra money. So it doesn't bother me that much that they said, hey, we'd like to keep them around a little longer. But Ron is kind of right, but he's also kind of wrong in that respect. But I fully agree with it. I think it's a good thing, especially after what Carolina's done. The other point he made was we all thought Tyrone Nix was going to be, Mr. World Beater on as far as defensive coordinators goes, and defense collapsed at the end of the year. Still time left. Not going to say it's going to happen, but there's still a possibility. Don't say I didn't say so.
All right, real quick after the game, Phil Fulmer, Tennessee, they've decided to split up after 17 seasons or so. Fulmer was 150 and 51 there, so obviously the end of a very successful run at Tennessee. How do you think he's going to be remembered in this conference?
I think he's going to be remembered as one of the great coaches in this conference. I mean, I think part of his thing that he was trying so hard was he wanted to eclipse Coach Neyland's record at Tennessee for most wins at Tennessee. And I really think overall that he really did a great thing. I mean, he was a great ambassador for the school, won a national championship, won numerous SEC titles, produced Peyton Manning, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, produced great guys in the NFL. Up until recently, really hadn't had a lot of disciplinary problems. kind of lost a little control of that team here as of late. But overall, I think he's a great coach. He'll be remembered very fondly and should be a Hall of Famer at Tennessee in no time at all.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. We're going to come back later in the show. We're going to preview this weekend's game against Arkansas, but for right now, let's send it back down to Taniqua.
The men's soccer team hosted UAB in a Conference USA matchup on Wednesday night. For more on the game, let's send it over to Stone Stadium.
It's late October here at Eugene Stone Stadium, and that can only mean one thing for fall sports: men's soccer. That's right, the USC Gamecocks taking on the Blazers of UAB, and USC in business early with the corner kick, but the Blazer defense holds up and nothing doing for USC early. We remain scoreless in the first half. More first half action. Mark Wiltsey with the free kick, and there's the header right there, but Wes Johnson for UAB gets the big time save. Now UAB is in business here. Here's Kevin Salchak with the goal. It goes past Jimmy Maurer, and the Blazers go up 1-0 in the first half. There's a celebration right there. Almost knocks over the corner flag, but UAB's happy, and for good reason. Now here's Two Boys Gumede to Derek Rios, and the goal is good, but it gets called back for offsides. And now here's USC with an opportunity. They're driving up the middle of the field, and there's the goal and the celebration. Your game is tied now 1-1. Now in the second half, USC just couldn't capitalize on opportunities. There's a missed headshot for you, and here on the corner kick, it gets headed by UAB, and some good defense is played, but ultimately Mark Wiltsey with the chance right here, and it just gets saved by Wes Johnson. So your final score in double overtime, USC 1, UAB 1. Justin Fabiano, Capital City Sports.
Coming up after the break, we'll go back into the boardroom to preview this weekend's game against Arkansas. But next, the women's soccer team hosted Florida in a nationally televised game Thursday night. Could the Gamecocks get a win against the 7th-ranked Gators? We'll find out right after the break.
The women's soccer team hosted the Florida Gators in a nationally televised game last Thursday night. For more on that, let's go over to Mike Wadsworth at Stone Stadium.
It was senior night Thursday as the women's soccer team's lone senior, Danny Montero, got some love from her teammates before the Gamecocks took on the number 7th-ranked Florida Gators. It was a fairly even first half as Kayla Grimsley got her first chance here for the Gamecocks in the 7th minute, but she couldn't pull the trigger. And then in the 17th minute, Amira Abdullah for Florida with this shot, but a nice save by Molly Patton, keeping this one tied at 0-0. Later in the first half, the Gamecocks with another chance. Natalie Aaron would take the shot here, but the Florida defense is there, and it would be 0-0 at the half. Now in the second half, Carolina defense was strong. They would control possession, put themselves in some great opportunities. Kayla Grimsley with the opportunity here, but she would put it just wide of the post. And then a few minutes later, Natalie Aaron would have another chance, but the Florida goalkeeper would get up and tip this one away, and the Gamecocks' missed opportunities would come back to haunt them here in the 79th minute. Florida would get the second chance opportunity and get themselves up 1-0. That would be the final in this one, and senior Danny Montero was disappointed, but is looking forward to the SEC tournament.
Our team is young, but we can do it. We know we can. We proved tonight that we can beat anybody. We just needed to correct a couple mistakes that we had, like little mistakes, and we can go and beat anybody. So we did our part. We qualified for SECs, and now we have to go practice, and we're ready to go and win the title.
As the 5th seed, South Carolina will take on number 4 Georgia in the first round of the SEC tournament in Orange Beach, Alabama. Mike Wadsworth, Capital City Sports.
As the Gamecocks get ready to host Arkansas on Saturday afternoon, the men of the boardroom preview the showdown against the Razorbacks.
All right, thank you very much. We're back here at the Coliseum. Alex, this weekend the Gamecocks play Arkansas at 1 o'clock, the homecoming game. Now, if I remember correctly, the last time we saw Arkansas playing South Carolina was last year in Fayetteville. I remember Darren McFadden, Felix Jones padding their Heisman Trophy resumes against us. Is this the same Arkansas team this South Carolina is going to face this weekend?
I really thought we were going to be able to say, no, this isn't the same Arkansas team, but in a lot of respects, it really is kind of the same Arkansas team. Those two guys, obviously two of the greatest running backs to play in this league in a very long time. And Carolina saw a lot of the backs of their jerseys last year because they just ran away with it. So Arkansas in a rebuilding mode this year, them and Marcus Monk gone, one of the best receivers in the league, so going to be a bad team. Not so much. They still have the top running back in the league, and this Michael Smith kid, who averages, I think, he's 12 or 13 yards better than the next best rusher in the league, which is Charles Scott from LSU, over 129 yards a game, something like that. So obviously a great running team. They've got a great running back who has a knack for finding holes in defenses and creating some big yardage. So Carolina's got to worry about the run yet again against Arkansas. All
right, well, if Carolina's defense has to worry about the run, how is South Carolina's offense going to approach the running game for themselves?
Well, I think obviously, really Steve Spurrier's just gone with it. We've just got to keep doing it over and over again, and eventually something good will happen, which for now I guess is the way it's got to go. Between the fact that Mike Davis really can't get off the ground, Eric Baker hasn't been all that impressive, and Steven Garcia seems to make things happen with his feet when plays break down. That's about the best running game Carolina's got right now, and it might be the best they're going to have all season. So Carolina fans just going to have to take what they can get as far as this goes.
Well, if the running game doesn't do what South Carolina needs it to do, are they going to be able to rely on Garcia and the wide receivers to make something happen and stretch the field?
I think so. They've been able to do it to this point. I mean, they've got great tight end play out of Jared Cook and a little bit of Wesley Saunders as well. And then they've got great wide receiver play, obviously, with McKinley and Mo Brown and Jason Barnes and Joe Hills and all these guys. So I really think they've got enough on that part that they have plenty of weapons they can go to. I mean, even Mike Davis can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's been mildly successful at doing that. So I think if it comes down to it, Carolina can pass their way to a win and get that elusive 7th win.
All right. Take the season right now, the games they have left. Do you think this team has what it takes to go 2-1 with the bounce of a couple balls, maybe 3-0, and really turn this season into something that nobody thought it was going to be?
I really do. I think that this is, and you hate to be like this as an analyst, but it really is one of those things where you look at it and go, wow, if this would have happened in this game and this would have happened in this game, Carolina could either be undefeated or a one-loss team right now. I mean, all their losses have come with a combined 21 points, 7 points each, and it actually was 7 points each. So, I mean, when you look at that, you got to think, wow, this team could have been something really special. Obviously, you have a Clemson team that is struggling right now with an interim coach and Dabo Swinney. They always picked up a big win at Boston College, but they're still struggling. Arkansas, not the team they were last year. They're a sub-500 team, struggling, might not get to a bowl game. They did pick up a big win against Tulsa. Florida is the Florida Gators, but Carolina played them to a 1-point game the year they won a national championship down in Gainesville, and probably could have won that game if not for a partially blocked field goal. So I really think that realistically, they should go 2-1. If they play their butts off, they could go 3-0. Not going to say it's going to happen, but keep it in the forefront of your mind because you never know.
All right, well, let's go to this weekend for right now. Give me a prediction and a score.
This one's going to be closer than a lot of people think. Obviously, that big win over Tulsa has kind of put Arkansas back into the talk of being bowl eligible. That's a game nobody could have thought they would have won, especially with the way Tulsa was scoring points. So I think this could end up being a shootout, but I think Carolina's defense is going to hold enough to get things going. I think Carolina's going to come out with I'd say 24-13 win.
Okay. You know, the offense just really troubled me the last week in the second half. I know a lot of people say that Spurrier was taking it easy on Tennessee, but I just don't know if that's the kind of thing you can afford to do in this conference. As far as this weekend goes, Arkansas, not too many people know much about them, but I think they're going to have some trick plays up their sleeves. It could go to overtime. Okay. I got Carolina winning by 10, so that's how we predict it. We'll see how it goes, but for Alex Riley, I'm Corey Burkhardt. Enjoy the game. Have a good weekend.
All right, well, that'll do it for us this week here at Capital City Sports. Be sure to check us out online at capitalcitysports.blip.tv to check out all of our exclusive online content.
And we're also available on iTunes. Just search Capital City Sports and download us on your iPod.
Capital City Sports will be back next Thursday at 8 for a brand new episode. For all of our crew, I'm Ed Cahill.
And I'm Tanika Penix. Have a great weekend.